JP here with Meats Fab and Customs. Sorry if you got some background noise going on. They're building a new fourplex next door to me where they took a single house down. Now they're gonna put a fourplex. So there's some background hammering and all that. That's what's going on next door. But we're gonna carry on with this chop here that we've been taking on here. Part 4 here of doing this chop. We're gonna make do the back window and finish this one corner. As you can see, I've already done this one corner here. I got it all. Still need some finishing up and everything, but it's you know, it's pretty good there. It needs some finishing up yet and everything. So we'll get that finished up. But I'm not really worried about finishing that up till I get all this bottom window in. And you can see here, I've cut the 2 inches out of here already. This side here, I got it marked. I got to cut the 2 inches out of here yet. We've got it marked, but you know, I've done a little cutting here, and you can see here, I've cut here. What was happening? I got a big bow in here because things still need to come in and be moved around. So as you can see here, there's some overlap right in here. It still needs to be trimmed. This is still coming out a bit, but I've cut from here and pie shaped this from here, and it's already moved over a little bit, and pie shaped this. So if you look at this body line now, this lines up pretty good. I got to push it in, but without pieing that, you are not pushing that in to get it to line up. So once you push that in, line this up, these lines all come in really nice. So as I said, in here, you still have to. It's got to be opened up a little bit here yet. We're gonna have to open up in here a bit yet to let this, because what ends up happening here, you're gonna start working this in here, right here. You're gonna start working this down in like this, is what you're gonna end up doing in here. And so we may end up having to open this up a little bit more yet in there to get that to come in. But then once this all comes in, it gets rid of, if you look, you got a bit of a bulge coming up in here. So it'll bring all that in. If you have to, I had to do a little bit over the other side. I just had to slit right there, and it was minimal slit, because you had a bit too much here, and I wanted to start doing this on you. I wanted to start puckering out on you on a sharp, fairly sharp, like a crease. So I just took my cutoff wheel and I just gave it just a little right in there, and it closed it up and brought it all in nice, which you can see here on this corner. You know, it's nice in there now. It looks like it's, you know, supposed to look in there. And like I said, it still needs some cleanup and everything in here, and some more dolly work in that. But you know, but I had to put just a little bit of a slit right in the high side of that, and it closed it up nice. Then we just welded it all up. So that's you know, what you have to do. Even here, you know, it needs a little bit of trimming right there, but you're gonna start, you know, clamping this, tacking it. And the first thing I'm probably gonna end up doing is pushing this in and getting that lined up to where it needs to be before I start welding and all. And then you can start fitting. Sheet metal is easier to move than this piece here. And the sheet metal we can stretch and move around. And once we get that done, then we'll start fitting this back window all in nice, and take that 1 inch out of here that we talked about earlier and everything. So that's where we're at right now with this. So we'll carry on with doing some cutting and a little bit of hacking and a little bit of making it look pretty. So yeah, so I'm just gonna start clamping, do a little tacking. Like I said, I want to get that the stiffest piece in first, and we'll get that in. We'll start doing some cutting and everything. So that's where we're at right now with this. So follow along, and we'll make this look like something by the time we're done. That's the plan anyways. So here we go. Let's get this thing done. Okay, so we got that body molding here. We got that all lined up. It's it feels and it's lined up fairly good here. So I'll just grab a straight edge and just lay it out like this, and just sort of make sure you're touching in both spots here. I'm not touching in here, if you look, because it starts curving in there. But pretty much all the way down, I'm pretty good. So I'll just, I'll weld that up. If you look, there's a space there, but I can fill that up with thicker filler rod in there. If you're using a MIG, you can fill that up, whatever you're doing. I use a TIG to do all these because I like being able to stretch the metal out and stuff. But if you see here, see, this is why I need to be split. Look, it's lined up. But if you look here, that's why you still have. So I'll get this and we start playing with the rest of it and sort of make everything all, that's structure right there. So then we can play with everything else and make everything else come in. So that's where we're at right now. I'll get that welded up, and then that'll hold it. Okay. So we got this here all, the main structure here, that's been welded together now. Feels all nice. So now, if we look here, all these are starting to come together really, really nice. Here. So, this one here still got the big bow, but we'll get that. But what I'm gonna do, what I'll go at now, is I will tack all this together. Because this here all feels nice. So I'll pull this out just a little bit here, get that to line up. And then after that, we'll be able to clamp this and get all this to all line up. And we'll just run tacks. Little tacks here all the way along. I got a space here, but I can actually only got to about here because you got to cut 2 inches off of this. So it's only actually right here is where the space is in it. And I can actually fill that with thicker filler rod. And this here is all nice, but we're not going to get into this yet. This here all fits really good. So I'm going to start tacking all this before, because what I don't want to happen is I start working this and it starts moving this, and then this ends up out, this ends up out. So while I have this pretty close here, and I've taken measurements already from here down to make sure this isn't doing this, because now's the time to fix it. And actually I took the measurements when I did that side. So same as your center to center on it. You know, do all those measurements before you start welding stuff solid, because it really sucks to have to cut welds out to move stuff, especially this. It's a lot of movement. So that's where I'm at now. I'll just come in, I'll tack this, give it a little hammer weld, and that. So what that is, you tack it while it's still hot. Just take your hammer and dolly and just hammer that weld. And that, which will flatten it out and everything, and just a few spots here so it can't move around on you. Same here. But like I said, what I'll do here is when you take this and move it out just that little bit, this lines up nice in this bend. So move this out, start up here and work down this way. So if it decides to stretch some, we can cut it down here. If you start here and work up here and if it wants to start moving, you aren't moving it in here. And with all this in here, you're not moving it. Where if it wants to move and stretch and you bring it down here, well, the worst that's going to happen down in here is you just got to take your cutoff wheel, your body saw or whatever, and then just open this up and then it'll let it go. So it's easier to move this than it is to move this corner. So that's why even when we get into here, I'm going to try and work this corner down like this, where you have, you know, where this is a lot, you know, look how easy that moves compared to that ain't moving. You can't move that and that. So try and get this all to come down this way. So that's what I'll do here. Like I said, I push that out a little bit so it doesn't line up, but it lines up here. So I'll tack it in here. I'm still lined up here. So usually what I do, and I should have one on me, but I don't. I'll take a Sharpie and I will mark. So right here is where it starts, where you're not flush. So I will just take a Sharpie and just go across here like this. And that's where I know to stop my weld when I come down. So you don't get in a roll and all of a sudden you got where it's spaced out, and then you can start working it. So it's just taking your time. The biggest thing is tacking. Once you tack all this, then we can start going at weld and spread things around. So that's, you know, that's where we're at right now. It must be 7 o'clock. That was my alarm going off. That's, you know, that's what happens when you're such a healthy person. You got to take pills every day. But anyways, whole other thing. But that's where we're at right now. So let's get some of that tacked up. Okay, so I've welded down here. Like I said, I've tacked that all up. Now, you get into here, and this is pulled in a little bit, right in there. Right in that little spot right there is pulled in a little bit. So what I have, you know, those fancy little screwdriver sets that you get. And this one here, actually, I ended up getting a nice little bend on it which makes it even better. But you get these fancy little screwdriver sets that, you know, you think these screwdrivers are good for nothing except for fixing your glasses. What they're good for is you can get in these little gaps here. So like I said, this is pulled down a little bit, this here, from this panel here. So what you can do is you just take this little screwdriver here, you can pry that out a bit, right in there, to get this all to line up. And that. So what you want to do on this one is I'm going to start here. I'll put a nice little tack, probably right about there, not right up against here, but right in about here to hold this out right here, and then start working this way. Because it's back to again, if this wants to start stretching, because I actually saw I had to hammer and dolly this a little bit. So what happened, this actually stretched a little bit, moved over, and I could hammer and dolly and get that gap to come together here. So if you look right in here, this piece here is dropped a little bit from this piece, very little. So what I'll end up doing is I'll get in behind here at the hammer as I'm welding this, and that's back to where I'm going to do that hammer welding, and I'll start popping this out, and it'll all line up nice. And that. So now that I got this all nice and flat, I'll lay a tack right there. So that'll hold this now, and then I can start working it all this way. So I'm not worried about this being in like this for right now, because actually what that does is it makes this come in so it touches. So as you work it, then it'll start coming out. Because I may end up looking here, I may end up having to cut this just a little bit in here on the overlap, but it depends on what the heat wants to do to it. But I have a feeling it's going to pull this up a bit, so I'll just have to just cut that just a little bit. And it's probably hard to see on camera, but if you look here, my cut actually goes up a little bit in there, if you look. So, but all in all, if you go back to, you know, the other videos where I said about keeping your cuts all nice, and this is why. If you look, this is all coming together nice. There's very little gap to be filled. Then that, to be honest with you, if you're MIGing this, you want to open these up some so you get weld down in there, and then just don't float it on the top. Well, with TIG weld, I can melt that in, and it'll stretch and everything. So I'm going to, that's where I'm at now. I'll come across here now, and we'll start getting this here all to come together. Okay, so if we look here, this is what I was talking about here. So if you look, let me find my fancy little screwdriver. Let me find it. There it is. Hoodies are great for these pockets. Yeah, you fill these things right up. So they end up weighing about 20 pounds by the time I'm done doing one of these jobs. But if you look here, this did exactly what I figured it was going to do. There, but if I look at my cut actually comes up a bit. But right in here, right there, we're up in here. Then so I've come to here, I'm all good and even, but with this being out like this, now I have to either grind this, a little flap disc, or get in here with your cutoff wheel and cut it. What I'm hoping to do, to be honest, is just get in here with my little grinder on my angle grinder, my little air one, and just open it up with this, because with the cutoff wheel, it's gonna make a big, it'll put a big opening in there. I don't need a real big opening. I just need to, what I'll end up doing is just sort of take a straight edge and go from here to here, and it's not gonna be all that much, because here I can see daylight in here. Right in there I can see daylight, so it's mostly just down in here. So what I'll do, like I said, I'll take a straight edge from there to where I can see the daylight, and then just, you know, probably if I have to, just stick a little screwdriver to hold this out, or even in here, and then just more or less sand that with like a 36 grit on your angle grinder and get that doll come in nice. So you don't want to go extreme on this stuff. Take your time on it and make it fit nice. If you end up with a great big gap, it's a bitch to fill later on, and you end up warping stuff, especially the MIG, because you end up laying so much heat in it. And the problem with a MIG is why I've gone TIG on all my body work. It's a cold weld, so you can't stretch it. It ends up cracking. You can't stretch it. Where with the TIG, you can stretch that. You can move it around and stuff like that, and that's how you can get it to fit really nice. So that's why I use. And TIG takes longer, but in the end, it looks better. You can play with your welds better and everything, and your finishing metal is a lot better. Like you can end up with very little, you know, very little body filler you're putting in, which in these things you don't want to put much in here anyways, because these cars move all over the place in here. So that's all I'll do here is I'll just, you know, hold this out, mark that line, and then just sand that and get that all to pop in there really, really nice. And if you notice, I haven't cut this yet. The reason why I haven't cut this yet is because it just gives you a bit more room to like pry and clamp if you have to. And stuff, where if you start getting up here, you don't have that much room. So that's why once I get, you know, everything coming in nice, I'll end up putting a nice little tack right in, probably in here, so this doesn't move. And then I'll cut that off and get it out of there is what the plan is there. So let's get to doing a little bit of sanding. Here we go. This here is all tacked right there. That was opened up, and it's still stretched a bit. I still stretched a bit because this here is got a little bow right in there, so I stretched it into here. And that, like I said, this is still long. That's got to be cut there at that line, so I'm not worried about that space there because this will be cut. This here section down here will be the section of window that we cut out earlier is what's going to go in down here. So I'm not worried about that at all. Right now that'll be cut out. So now that this here is all stiffened up and looking pretty good, I'm not going to weld any more of this. We'll just leave this just like that for right now because I want to go at this now and try to get all this to move down in here and fit all this. So this is good now, so I don't want to make this all solid yet. And like outside there's all, but I don't want to do this yet. I want to sort of get everything all tacked so stuff can still, if it has to, it can still move a little bit if it has to. So that's where we're at right now. So now, instead of doing this, and that, because it's back to, this moves easy. This doesn't. So you want to work everything down this way. And you don't want to work it this way. Because if you work it this way, you're just going to bow it. You're going to buckle that. So what you do is more or less think of this as a piece of paper. So if you want to see what happens, just put a piece of paper on here and see which way it wants to stretch. You know, if you take your piece of paper and you hold it and you start moving it this, well, it's going to show you. It's going to pucker in here and that. So just think of this as a piece of paper. And you know, people use, it's a piece of dough, it's a piece of whatever, you know, whatever you want to think of it as, but just imagine it that way. So, you know, put it and work that piece of paper and see which way you can work that to get this out. And so, you know, if you take your piece of paper and you got it and you start working it this way and you see your paper buckling up in here, you know, you don't go this way with it, you know, and don't be afraid to grab your Sharpie and write, you know, put arrows on where you want to be, which way you want to move this. And like, you know, we want to move it this way and this way and because when you hit that with a hammer, you can flow that to move and you can move your metal and so if you know you need to go this way and this way, then when you hit this, you want to hit it like this. You don't want to hit it that way because you're going to cause your wave to go that into where all your strong metal is. You want to work your wave this way is what you want to do. You want to work it down because if you look here, we're not that far off there. We're going to need, you know, to cut in here, but we're not that. So work your wave this way. Now don't take it that way. And it's the same here. If you got it where you got a space here, then you know you want to work this way. And that is what you want to do. So it all sort of comes in, so your excess metal goes into where you need it. And here we need to take it away. So we're going to come down this way with it. So, like I said, if you have to, get a piece of paper, tissue paper, whatever, lay it on here and just play with it on which way it'll take that out is what you want to do. So I'm going to start working this. I'll get in behind here with a dolly and then just start hammering this and see how much, like I said, I may end up having to in this high, and you can see where your high spot is. I may end up having to just put a little slit in here and get it to, and then at that point you're going to work it this way And you also work it this way at that point. Because at that point, you don't want to open this right up and keep working it all this way. So if you can get this to come in and start working, you know, your bottom half, but we'll see what happens. Let's see what happens before we get into that. And we'll see what happens. Let's just start working this and we'll go from there. So stretch this over, and we've taken a lot out of here. You see you're pretty much touching here and that. So what it needs, as soon as I find something to push on it with. So if you take this here and just push on that, this here all lines up pretty good here, nice and flush. So what I'll end up doing to do this is I'll push on this while I tack this, and this is the joys of working by yourself. So I'll end up taking the old hammer, putting it in here just like this, and then I'll be able to tack that and start working. It actually still needs just a little bit in here yet, just a little bit more, and then that to come down. And then we'll start working it down into here. And if you look, it's starting to overlap here, which means it's starting to do this. But if you saw when I was hammering this, I wasn't coming straight on it. I was moving the metal. I was sliding my hammer this way, then that down on there to get this to go from this point, like I said with the arrows before, from this point and getting it to slide this way, which is why you end up with overlapping in here, which I'll end up, I'm not worried about this right now. I'm gonna tack this here where I'm level, and then I'll come down into here and then start keeping until I'm level, and then I'll open that up to where it needs to be. Because I know already, if you look, I gotta open it here, I gotta open it here, here we're pretty good. And that. So it's sort of one step at a time. But like I said, you're not moving metal this way. You'll never move this corner, but you can move it that way. So that's where we're at right now. Let's hold this, tack that up, and then start, then just carry on with bringing this all down and in. There we go. You can see where it's coming out. And that, see, we come in here, and then it comes out here a bit. So you got excess metal here. But as you work that, see, I can get that to go in. See how nice and easy that's moving in now? And down to there where I'm touching. So that's why, you know, we should be able to get in here, get that tacked too, and then open that up and let everything move in. So that's where we're at. So we got this, I got this here all in here nice. So if you look, how nice that fits in there now. Well, no more, it's not pregnant anymore. There, it's all nice and flat, so now all you gotta do is fill this with weld. Now if you look right here, right there, so this here had a cutoff disc run through here. And so, you know, thickness of a cutoff disc. That's how thick this was. And even there, you know, that's still pretty much a cutoff disc. This here is how much this is stretched to get this to come down where I needed it. Because we're now touching. We're touching. If you look here, we're overlapping. So I got it tacked there. It's still okay there, but then it starts. So right in here, I got to cut. I got to run my cutoff disc down here. Or if you got to buy it, whatever. And open this up, and probably even once I run a cutoff disc down through here, this here is pretty much going to touch when it starts coming over, because this here still has to shrink down and go over. And if we look there, look right here. See, that's your cutoff disc here. So this here hasn't really stretched, but right in here, we're stretching. So I'll end up doing the same in here. Taking my cutoff disc right from there down to right there, and so we can start bringing all this around. So now that we've done this, and this here is your most difficult part to move, was this corner, and that is right here. So we got this all tightened up. So now we'll start opening this up, and that in there. Instead of doing that first, we did that first. So now we'll start opening all this up, and everything will come around nice. And then if you notice, I haven't done anything in this bottom corner here yet. I haven't laid any weld in here at all, because the force of this is pushing it back. So I don't want to lay, because I still want this. If it has to come around, it can come around, or it can come this way. Because like, remember back a bit ago, I had to put a relief cut in here. And to get things to move because it didn't want to come around for me. And so I had to put a bit of a relief cut in here. So that's why I haven't gotten into touching this bottom here yet. And because you start touching it, then you're committed up here. So I'd rather, like you said, get this to slide down here. I can lose metal in here. So that's where we're at right now. I'm gonna get a cutoff wheel and we'll cut this and let things go. And it's pretty neat when you start cutting some of this, because all of a sudden the pressure will release and all this, you'll hear it and you watch it stretch and it all comes in nice for you. So that's where we're at right now. Let's get this here opened up so we can get stuff to move in here. So we got that, we got her all cut, and the thing actually popped pretty hard when I got into here, and she wanted to grab the disc, and when I got right into there, because all this finally got to let go, then that and come into place here. So if we look, you can see everything's all come into place. Then that, but if you look, you know, there's the full cutoff disc there. Look how much that bottom's come in. And same idea here. Look at there. Look it down in there. So, well, this here is pretty good. I got to just get in behind here and so I'll end up with just a little screwdriver like I showed you before there. And we'll just lift that a little bit and then just tack that. And then we'll start lining up this bottom piece here. This bottom piece right in here. I'll start lining it up. We're nice in here. So actually what I may do is I may tack it there first and then come up into here, because then that'll hold that stationary, and then come into here and get this all sitting nice and flush in here, because we can still move this in here. You still have enough metal to move that. So, but right in here we're lined up already. So I may do this and then come in behind here and start, because here's what happens when you start pushing this, it starts moving it. So that, but first I'll get this here all coming in here nice and lining up. What you want to watch for there is you don't end up getting where it does this on you. Then that, you want to make sure this flows around and it doesn't peak on you, where it comes around, peaks up, and then peaks back down. Make sure this still flows nice. If I feel that right there, it's wanting to peak up like this on me. So I'll start here, we're good here, and I'll tack it here and start working it. And then I may have to, actually I know I'm gonna have to, I feel it already. I'm gonna have to start rounding this around to make it so it flows nice like that and doesn't peak on you. So let's start tacking this together and we'll start playing with that a bit more. So like I said, when you're doing this stuff, doesn't matter how you chop it, up here, wherever, just take your time. Just take your time, lay it out. The biggest thing is, I can cheat a little bit with TIG welding because you can stretch the shit out of it. And that afterwards, Megan, you can't. You cannot stretch those welds. They want to, they'll stretch a bit at the edges and that, but you'll start cracking stuff. Whereas this here, once you get going and start welding it, you can hammer weld it. You can start moving your welds. You can get stuff to come out if it has, you know, a bit of a, you know, a bit of a crown or whatever to it. You can move it and that. So that's, I don't know. That's why I like TIG welding. Even you can do the same thing if you want to. If you want to go real old school and get into gas welding, and you know, as much as I know someone else on the internet uses coat hangers, but that's honestly the old school way. Gas welding with a coat hanger. And you can stretch that as well, because all you're doing is putting metal in. But that's gas welding with a coat hanger, not MIG welding with a coat hanger. We'll just leave it at that. You guys can figure it out from there. That's the other thing. If you do MIG welding with a coat hanger, you ain't stretching that weld. It's a freaking cold weld. It's not, you know, a soft, malleable weld afterwards. So it's, you know, so when it comes to doing this, that's why honestly, like, TIG welding takes longer and all that. Like, I could buzz this with a MIG in no time. But I don't know if it's any quicker or not, because by the time you use a MIG and heat and cool and heat and cool and blow and cool and cut, because it's put, I don't know, each to their own. You guys do however the hell you want to do it. But those are different options to do it. like I said, if you don't have a MIG or a TIG, don't be afraid to get the old torch out and do the old, the old school welding them up. They did it for a lot of years. So that's where we're at right now. I'll get this here all tacked up, and we'll go from there. All tacked up and actually looking pretty. Everything lined up here pretty nice here. Everything came in. Like I said, you got areas there pretty much touching. That's kind of an ugly goober weld there, but it'll grind out. It'll look pretty. But yeah, everything here is all lined up. So if you remember the great big space and all that we had here, we don't have that anymore. This is all really nice. It's all come in nice and that. But if we look here, right down in here, see how that, it's kind of hard to see on camera. If you look in here, this here is opened up. But when you push on it, I can get that to close up. So what I'll end up doing is I'll end up putting a little wedge in there, push this out. But if you watch, it moves it all the way to here. But I'll be able to get that out, and that part of that is because of this here relief cut we put in here, right there. I'll be able to bring that out. And what I'll end up doing is I'll probably weld in here, and I'll bring metal from, let's see, how tight are we here? Well, if you look here, we're tight here. So I'll end up bringing metal back this way if I can, to bring it into here. Then that. So this here will probably end up opening up as like I said, I'll just put a little wedge in behind here, because I don't have, if I had a clamp long enough to come in here, I'd do it that way. Another trick I could probably do, because I still have a bit of an edge here, is take a self-tapping screw, come in right about there, and then just grab this, and suck this in and tack it, then fill the hole up later. But if I do that, I want to bring the self-tapping screw into this, and not into this, because this here will be a bitch to line up afterwards. But if I do it in here, and even with a washer, then you pull this and tack it. And what I'll probably, if I do that, I'll go into where the highest, the biggest gap is right there, and then just pull that out, and then tack, and then it'll hold it and everything. So right now, I'm just gonna leave this like this, in case, and I don't think I have to, just in case later on here, I end up having to slit this a bit to get myself like right in here, right in that area. If I gotta slit this just a little bit there, like cut a couple tacks to get a bit more metal into here, then I can. So I'm not gonna weld all this up yet. What I'm gonna do now is fit this back window is what I want to do now before I weld all that up. So I'm gonna end up cutting here. Like I said, this here it's already been marked here. We're gonna cut this out of here. If you notice, I haven't cut this yet. I am not cutting this yet. We're gonna line these pieces up first, and then cut that afterwards. That's roughly where that cut's gonna be. But if you cut this now, and then it's easier to do this afterwards. And you can actually put clecos in here if you want to sort of hold everything while you're roughly tacking this and doing that. So don't cut this out yet. Don't cut that 1 inch out of there yet, because what it may end up happening, it may end up being less. Once you do this here may end up being 3/4. Well, once you cut it, and like I've said a few times here, I hate when I cut the thing short twice. It sucks. So I don't want to have to weld a piece in there afterwards because I cut that already. So we're going to fit this window frame, get that all fit in, tacked in, and then we'll go at, then I'll probably get this here, and then we'll go at welding all this all in so it's all solid. But this here is all, we're a good start there right now. So let's get this window frame, this back window frame here all fit in here, and see how it's going to look. And should look sexy. Here's hoping. Here's hoping it all lines up nice. If all the cuts went nice, but from what I'm seeing so far, we should be good. Fingers crossed. But okay, let's get this thing fixed. See what we got going on. So we got this cut here. I said we cut the 2 inches out of here. What I did is I took a level, put it across here. So we cut this out. So this is all tacked and everything. So now we'll go over here to this window frame that, you remember we cut it out earlier. There's the window frame. So now what needs to be done, we need to cut 2 inches out of here. in that, because remember, we're only taking 4 inches out of the window opening, so it's an inch bigger, and then we'll take the rest out of the bottom. But like I said, we're not cutting the bottom yet, we're going to cut this. So we're going to take 2 inches out of here on both sides, and then we'll fit it in there and figure out how much we need to cut out of the bottom from there. So that's what we're gonna do here. So like I said, that's why we cut this window frame out way back at the start of this project and measured it all up. So if you hold it, there's our line there, roughly there, you see roughly 2 inches here we're going to cut out of there. So that's why I'm not cutting the bottom, because like I said, it's roughly 2 inches, so we can play with it at the bottom. So don't cut that bottom out yet, and we'll get this here all fit and make sure all this fits nice. And but if you look, see, you don't have, or if you would have went up here, you end up with like a mail slot window, which makes for a real bitch to see out of. So that's why I'd rather have the bigger window in the back, and lowering this down actually makes your proportions look better because you don't have all this space up in here. So that's where we're at now. We'll measure the 2 inches on there, and we'll go from there. So we got the back window here. It's all it's clecoed in and centered up and everything. So it's that's where it's going to sit, right in there. So I still have the 1 inch in behind here. So what I'll end up doing is I'll weld. You know, we'll be clamping this, welding it all together, and then I'll run a cutoff wheel through here and cut all this out. So it'll all get tacked. You can see here I've clamped in here already to make sure this lines up. So I'll end up just tacking it right in there, because this here is all lined up. Actually, I've got to come out with this. It's pretty good actually. I'll put another clamp in here to clamp this, then I'll end up welding here, do the same here, because I need to be able to tip this in some, because we're sitting out the amount of this sheet metal right now. But before you get into welding, you want to do some measuring here. As long as these, we're okay here, but we want to measure in here. And that, so from this body line to this body line, to make sure this window is square. So what I do is I'll take my marker here and I'll go like this, like that, do the same thing here. So I know where I'm measuring from, because if you look here, this thing here, in this area here, it starts moving up. So if you get into that, you know, where it starts moving up and everything, your measurement will be off. So what you want to do, make sure you're in the straights here, and just, like I said, that way you're measuring from the same spot all the time, and you're not getting over here, and all that. So, measuring right there, from that body line to there, 7 1/4, and then I just write this number down. This way, if anything starts to move, you know what you started at, because the other time things will move when you start cutting and stuff like that. So you want to make sure, if you look here, I got a line right here. And it's not centered up or anything, that line, but that line will just show you if anything starts moving and going funny on you. So then I do the same thing here, in here, from there to there, 7 1/4. So that's good. And then, like I said, with these lines here, and this will let you know if anything's going to move around on you, and that is what that does for you. So as you start welding, you can watch for that. So like I said, I'm clamped here. This is lined up nice already. I'll get my vice grip, my long vice grips to go in here, and then pull that like that, and then I'll be able to tack this here on here. So that'll be lined up, that'll hold it. I roughly get a tack in here, and that, I think I'm gonna have to cut. If I look here, this kind of pulled out a bit, so I think I'm gonna have to cut in here. So that'll come back in, and that, because this line here is all nice and all that, it seems to be out right there. And then we'll do the same in here, clamp this, and we'll start with this, and once all that's lined up, we can start cutting everything to get it to, and tack it just like we did there. Same idea, we're gonna tack this all together before this all gets fully welded up. So that's where we're at right now. So I'll start playing with this and getting this here all clamped up so I can get it all tacked in. If you remember back a little bit ago here, I said in here, just tack all this. And here's part of the reason why. So this here, I got all nice and straight and flat in here now and in here. But if you notice, I had to cut these tacks out of here. What was happening is this was pulling in, which end was pulling this in, which end was making it, so it actually had a backwards. It was going like this in here. So this was in and this was in. So I had to cut and release this so I could get this straight. Now that I have this all nice and flat in here and that, now you can clamp this, and I still haven't cut this yet, but I can get about halfway down to level this up. So you put a clamp on here, so this will be flush, and then this will be flush, and tack that back up again here. So this here will all be flush and follow all nice and straight. So that's why if I had welded this all the way across, this all the way across, I would have had to cut that weld out of there and then moved it around and everything. So that's why I just tack everything all together. I'll be honest, I lucked out down this end, but I did have to slit it just a little bit in here to get it. So I'll be honest, I shouldn't have welded that all the way up across there. I lucked out. Every once in a while you'll luck out. And but yeah, that's why you only tack this. Just tack that, and then like I said, now I'll put a clamp on here, my vice grip to come in through here, and I'll be able to weld this all up, tack this all together now, and everything will fit nice. So that's the reason for tacking. So we got these sides all tacked like I showed you here, and that. So now we're gonna cut this bottom out here. So there's still a bit here. There's actually about 1 inch. There's a bit here, a bit there. So I'll cut this and then cut. I'll leave the clecos, but here you can see that there just needs to be pulled in. So what I'll do is I'll clamp this before I cut it, so I can get a really nice cut along here, and cut all the way along here and in here. And then once that's done, then I'll pull these clecos and let that piece fall out in the backside. Then we'll start tacking this together. And when we start tacking this together, I'll start in the middle and work to each side, sort of thing, instead of starting here and working it all down this way, because what'll happen if you do that, you'd end up with a whole bunch of metal down here because you've worked all this to there. So we'll start here, go that way, start here, go that way, and that way you don't have as much metal if things start moving around on you. So that's where we're at right now. So I'll get this cut and we can get this all tacked together, and we'll have a back window frame and everything all tacked up here, ready to be welded up. I ran this, I cut it all the way along, but I left down in here, I left a bit right there because I couldn't get under it, here and here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp this, because this here is all lined up nice where I've cut it already, and I'll just tack it and tack it, because what's happening right now, this is holding it. So this is holding things from going all over the place. So once you tack this in a couple spots here and there, you know, you just got to clamp it. It's easy to do and line that all up. And then I'll cut this out and let that go in, and I'll do the same here and let that go in, and then that'll go in, and everything will line up nice. So I'm more or less using these where I didn't cut it out. Everything else I cut out, I'm leaving that till I get this all tacked, because if not, once you cut that out, this here may want to flop in really hard and that, or do, you know, bow and all that, and you got, this is all lined up really nice. So that's why I'm going to do it that way, and I'll be able to line this up and just put a couple nice little tacks on it to hold it, and then I'll cut the rest out. So when you do that, don't get right up against where this is on yourself, because you won't be able to get in there. You want to come to cut a weld. So here I'll be able to do it nicely, and that, and then come down into here, and it'll just be a couple little tacks here to hold it, and then you can play with it and hammer and dolly it all afterwards. So that's what we're gonna do now, is just put a couple little tacks on there. Okay, so I finished off here. I cut this piece out. That's the piece that was in behind. It is all cut out, gone, and then I just finished tacking this here all up nice and even, and that. So it's just a matter of taking the dolly, hammering it all out to level it out a little bit more, and it'll all be good. Then sit here and weld it all up. So that's where we're at with this video. This is all tacked in. Now this roof is all tacked on and ready to be fully welded up. So the next video we'll fully weld this thing all up, do some hammer dolly and grinding, make it all look pretty and sexy. So right now, that's where we're at. The back window's in. So if you notice, we still have a half decent sized window in this one. It doesn't have the little mail slot. And if you look at your space in here, To me, this looks one heck of a lot better than the ones that get shot and don't get this pulled out of here. It proportions it up, because what happens if you don't, this is an inch higher than that up in here, so you have all this space from your body line up, and I don't like the proportions of it. It looks like hell, to be honest with you. So even if I'm chopping, I got one outside that I chopped 6 inches, I actually will pull about the same out of here, or even a little bit more out of here, to make this all look nice. I find it looks better than what it does from the factory. So yeah, so that's where we're at right now. It's all tacked all together and all that. Everything worked out good. I'm happy with how the corners and all that came in. How much easier this is to do than to try and, when you cut them around the side and get everything to move. I find that they're a lot easier. This is how I'll be chopping these things from now on. So that's where we're at with this thing right now. So yeah, like I said, I'll get in here and start welding, fully welding the roof on, but it's all tacked on. This is, you know, this is what we got going on here with it. So, you know, we got a back window all in it. You know, you got, there we go. When you stand back and look, you got all your, you know, all your lines there. So that's where we're at. It's all, like I said, it's all tacked together. It's just a matter now, get in here and weld this all up. So in the next video, that's what we'll do. We'll get into welding it all up and make it look like a car, make the doors and everything all open nice. We'll end up, we got to cut the garnish moldings all out of it, the front windshield and everything. Get the visor mounted, sitting there on the engine right now. So yeah, so that's where we're at now with it, and that's what we'll be doing. So if you like what you see going on here, to go, you know, subscribe and like the channel. If you have any questions, you know, comment, ask questions. If you have easier, like I said before, if you have easier ways to do it, feel free. I'm open for ideas, and feel free to send them. So, you know, like, get out there, like I've always said, get out there and do something cool. And it's still winter. Heck, we just got dumped on about 5 inches last night and that. So the old wagoon's outside, and it ain't a happy wagoon right now. But yeah, go like, subscribe, you know, all that good stuff. Share, and get out there and do something cool. So till we get to welding, I'll see you guys here in a bit, and bye.